Good morning. Good morning, all of you. I'm just so glad to be here. My name is Pam Crookedacre. I flew all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma to be part of this event. I'm a former elementary school principal and teacher. I was a reading recovery teacher. I was a coordinator for Title I, and then I retired after 35 years in the public schools in Michigan and went home to Tulsa. Everybody needs to go home to Tulsa. And I went home to Tulsa to help take care of aging parents. And my retirement job is with the Community Action Project, a huge head start. We have 2,500 children and families, and I work with all the pre-K teachers. I get to go in their classrooms. I get to work one-on-one. It's like the dream job. And I partner with New Teacher Center, and this is such a joy for me to be here with you. My friend Kristin and I, we've done quite a number of trainings this year for our teachers, and I get to learn from you guys. So although you didn't know it, you welcomed me, and I really appreciate that. So,
good morning, everyone. I'm Kristin Tripathy, and as Pam said, I have had the privilege of working with her this last year in Cap Tulsa as one of our associative directors for the Early Learning Initiative with the New Teacher Center. And I've been in the educational field for about 15 years now, and maybe a little more, but always in early childhood. It's always been where my passion is, and specifically for today with our topic of supporting students with challenging behaviors. It's near and dear to my heart for a couple of reasons. Number one, anytime you sit down with a teacher, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be something they're going to want to talk about, right? Help me with this child. Help me meet their needs. In addition to that, you saw hopefully in our title, we're going to be really focusing on working from the inside out, and it's really kind of just this way of being. And it's something that when I started embracing these strategies and techniques, it not only changed my practice, but it's when I saw the most shifts with other teachers that I was working with. So we're going to just crack the surface today. We wish we had all day with you, but we hope that we leave you with a few nuggets and going back feeling inspired. So with that,
so before we start our first connector, I'd love to just say my passion. As an elementary principal, when you're in the outside of the classroom and you're looking in and you're trying to support all your teachers, I was always frustrated because it was the same children that got sent out in the hallway or into the office every day. And if I'd known then what I know now, it would have been a different story. But when I started down when I started to work with the early learning environment, even more so than I did in the K-12 world, I learned so much more about that relationship and about the adults' kind of contribution to what's going on in that classroom. So if anything today, I'm going to just quote what Ellen Galinsky said. She says, it always starts with adults. Unless we have these skills, which are the executive functioning skills ourselves, we can't teach them to children. So when we connect that to our title for today is Challenging Behaviors from the Inside Out. And you know, this is the end of the year for you. So you're probably thinking, oh, you're tired, I know how this goes, and you're like, but if this could be something you could begin to just kind of let a seed ruminate inside and think about how you want to begin next year, what a gift you would have for yourself and your children. So that's encapsulates my passion.
All right, so we are going to dive in, and we're going to begin in true New Teacher Center fashion. If any of you have been in other trainings with our connector, we start this way for 2 reasons. Number one, we want to connect you to the content right away, but more importantly, we want you to connect with one another and get your voice in the room. We know that just like with the kids we work with, the longer they sit there and don't interact, the longer they are likely to not interact, and that's how we learn. So we're going to get you connected right away to the topic and with one another with a really sweet story. And Pam and I are going to kind of duet this.
The Girl on the Yellow Giraffe. So we have 2 copies hopefully you can see back here, Vanna, in the back. You'll be able to see pictures here. In the front, Kristin will have those ready for us. Think about how poignant this story is and the perspective from this child.
There once was a girl on a yellow giraffe.
She lived in a beautiful stone castle.
Inside the castle, there was a magic box.
It carried her gently down to the land of the giants.
She was not afraid.
She said hello to everyone.
And everyone said hello to her.
She visited strange places and saw many wonderful things.
She saw a wizard, a magician in a blue hat, and monsters and dragons. Sometimes the road was rough, sometimes the road was smooth.
She played in a garden.
It had a fountain.
She watched games and battles.
She rode wild animals and flew with the birds.
She climbed a mountain and came to a river.
It was too wide to cross, so she started for home.
The games were over. The fountain had stopped.
The magician had disappeared.
The wizard was sleeping.
But the magic box was still there.
It carried her gently up to her home in the castle.
From her window, she could see the river, too wide to cross, on a yellow giraffe.
The end. It's a beautiful book. Thank you. I might need you again.
I'm going to just pass it on to the closer.
Would you guys like to look at this?
So, how does this have to do with our topic for today, you might be wondering. That is a question I want you to keep in your mind. And can I just have a different voice in the room read this quote from Salma Hayek for us, nice and loud in your best teacher voice or administrator? Thank you. I just want to point out two things with this. Number one, that story is such a perfect depiction of beauty being in the eye of the beholder. If you're paying attention to those images that she was having. And we know children, especially young children, can be so good at this. As adults, a little bit harder sometimes. And I love how at the end, she brings it into looking inside ourselves, and that goes back to what Pam was saying earlier, and Ellen Galinsky with the theme of today is it does start with us. So we're going to keep circling back to that, but now I want to switch the quote and get it into our content. So if beauty is in the eye of the beholder, let's imagine if behavior is in the eye of the beholder. Anyone, I'm seeing some nodding like, yeah, I can see that perspective. And we just want you to have a stand-up partner meeting. We know we've been sitting for a while already this morning. So we're going to ask that you make eye contact with someone sitting at your table, but not the person right next to you, so that you have to move just a little bit. If you're crunched, don't worry about it. Do what works best for you. But these are the two questions we want you to talk about. What resonated for you when you read this quote? What questions might surface? And how might this statement be useful to keep in mind in the classroom? When you're ready, make eye contact. We'll give you about 3 minutes. Thank you so much. I felt the energy in the room rise quite quickly with that question. So we would just like to hear from a couple of you a highlight from the conversation with you and your partner. Just a couple thoughts, whether it was something that resonated, a question, or the last one of how you could see this parallel bringing it into the classroom. Yes, thank you.
My partner was wonderful. She said she looks for what's missing. If they're misbehaving, then something's missing for that child.
Did everyone hear that? She said if something is missing, she she looks for what
There's something, I try to find what they need, what's missing that will help them turn around or.
what's the skill they need. So you're looking at behavior as communication.
Well, not just a skill, what they need. Are they getting love at home? Do they need someone that's going to give them hugs and think that they're special? And that's what I do.
Beautiful. So whether that need is a skill or it's, I mean, I still think of it as think of Maslow's hierarchy, the way you just framed it. It's beautiful. They need to feel safe. They need to feel loved. And we're going to talk more about that. Thank you. Yes.
My partner was wonderful as well. I think circumstances, where they come from and what they need in our classroom because of what they're not getting at home. So it kind of feeds off of the same idea.
Absolutely. Needs that are unmet. And I also love, I'm not sure if this is the spin you were taking, but with the word circumstances also makes me think of we all view behavior differently depending on the lens that we come from, how we were brought up, our culture, everything affects that. And so what we may deem as appropriate is maybe not what someone else does. So the circumstances. One more. Thank you. Back. Oh, there.
The quote just made me feel like it's really true. It is in the eye of the beholder. So like I work at a full inclusion school, so just thinking about like meetings and things and coming from like a GE teacher's perspective, from a SPED teacher's perspective to all these other people involved. And so I think for myself, it's just more of now becoming like a mind shift change. And I was telling her because of, like you said, the way I was raised, the way I was taught, you know, the way that I was when I was in school. So then necessarily just because it was that way for me, does that mean it's best for my kids? And doesn't need to be that way just because it always has been. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. No need to add on to that. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to continue this conversation. After Pam lets us know where we're headed next.
So these are just the 3 main bullets. We'd like you to walk away with a sense of these 3 things. Of course, in an hour and a half, we're just going to touch the surface. We're in the top part of the iceberg. But we want to understand a bit of the 3 brain states. We want to understand a bit of what's the connection between the social emotional skills and those executive functions that Ellen talked about this morning, and how does that relate to these challenging children that exhibit these challenging behaviors. You've heard the statement, all behavior is communication. All behavior is communication. And the 3 of you that shared out so aptly described that. And then let's recognize some of our triggers. You talked about where we come from, where our experiences are. Let's decide what some of our individual triggers are and practice how we can silence those or quiet those and practice composure, pivoting, and reframing when we're addressing those challenging children. Does this sound like something that would be important to you right now, this conversation? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Okay, perfect. So we have a little agenda, and New Teacher Center they're always so specific about allowing transparency in practice. And so we started with our welcome. We did the connect. We're doing the overview right now, and pretty soon we're going to get into the brain states. So we'll just be moving the arrow down. Those of you that do meetings, great way to keep everybody on track. Also, to give everybody a chance to have equity and to be heard. We have some norms that are pretty standard. Equity of voice, we want to give everybody a chance that needs to have equity of voice and give them the chance to say what they need to be said and to be heard. And the second one is the one that I find for myself to be the most difficult, to quiet that chatter in my head of all the things I need to do to finish the school year, of the dinner I don't have planned, of the people coming over for the weekend, all of those things, and to actively listen, to keep pulling myself back. And I know that's really hard. We have busy, busy lives. Respect for all perspectives, we've got that covered. Safety and confidentiality goes without saying. This is just an open forum that we can share some of those really heartfelt things for each of us. And of course, the last one, which has become quite necessary in these days and times, to self-monitor the use of electronics. So, with that, everybody agree that those are important? Perfect.
Okay, we're going to do this slightly different. Just a quick popcorn out, because I think some of these ideas have already been alluded to. So, with the question, how might it show up in the classroom when children have not yet developed these social and emotional skills, or the executive functions that we were talking about this morning? What behaviors might you see? Anyone? Tantrums. Outbursts. Conflicts with peers.
Aggression. What was that? Aggression.
Yelling. Body tantrum, flailing. Defiant. Hijacking. Running. Yep. Fleeing. Crying. What? Sorry? Breaking things. You got it. We could go on and on, right? It's easy. It's easy to know what those challenging behaviors are and what they look like. What is perhaps not as easy is going to that iceberg analogy and figuring out where is that behavior surfacing from, and then even more challenging, what do I do about it? What's my next step? So one of the first things that, and this is coming from a book called Conscious Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. Thumbs up if you're familiar.
Are you familiar with Dr. Becky Bailey's work?
It looks like this.
Conscious
discipline
as opposed to unconscious discipline. This is conscious discipline. Wonderful website, consciousdiscipline.com, has a huge amount of resources free for teachers. There's a teacher portal, and we're just going to kind of give you a taste today. Fabulous, fabulous resource.
We'll be sharing a few specific tools from there as well. But she starts off Conscious Discipline talking about this notion. This is also coming from Cephal, if you're familiar with the pyramid training. So we're just going to read this out loud, and I will start, and if you could join Pam in the
refrain.
Thank you. If a child doesn't know how to read,
we teach.
If a child doesn't know how to swim,
we teach.
If a child doesn't know how to multiply,
we teach.
If a child doesn't know how to drive,
we teach.
If a child doesn't know how to behave,
we teach, sometimes punish. I don't know.
And you can see here that the point to the way this is written is that's not as easy of a response. It's not as automatic of a response for some, perhaps. And we just identified all of those behaviors. So a kid is throwing a tantrum. Our CD-ROM, our brains might not go into, okay, what do I need to teach right now? Instead, we might be going, stop! We can't have this, right? We might be going right into blaming and punishing. So we want to flip that today and talk about what that looks and sounds like, and start this with the brain states.
Okay, so I'm going to read to you about 3 paragraphs directly from Dr. Becky Bailey's book, and it highlights the fact that we are always teaching. Imagine you're driving to the store with a carload of children when a car cuts in front of you. Your survival state kicks in. You automatically swerve to avoid an accident, and you begin to relax. The survival state turns off, and then your upset emotional state turns on. You yell, "You idiot! What are you trying to do? Kill us? What were you thinking?" No one thinks about anyone but themselves. As the children in the back seat watch the event unfold, you are teaching them it's okay to call people names, yell harsh judgments when the world doesn't go your way. Imagine how this lesson might transfer to the checkout line at the store when the children ask, "Can we have a piece of candy?" And you say, "No." From the children's point of view, you've just cut them off in traffic. It's not surprising they might yell, "You're stupid, you don't care about anyone but yourself, I hate you." In addition to the genetic past that's hardwired into our survival state, we sometimes call that our CD-ROM. It plays over and over, it's hardwired. Our emotional state provides us with some interesting software by recording our personal past experiences. As we form memories, our emotional states tags them with both the verbal content and the emotional experience. Our brains store memories in this state-dependent way, creating mental models of how we behave when we believe things should be and how we believe things should be. If things don't go according to these conditioned models, the brain signals boom, 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 red alert, as if a wolf is coming. If our parents yelled at others and looked for someone to blame during moments of frustration, that script is coded into our frustrated emotional state like a file on a CD-ROM. All we have to do is find ourselves in a physiological and emotional state of frustration, and the CD-ROM within us begins to yell at others and look for blame. Of course, our parents are not the only voices recorded in our personal CD-ROM. We also have friends, family members, teachers, and television, Facebook.
Saw lots of head nodding as Pam was reading that story. So just going a teeny bit deeper with the brain states and understanding that we need to be aware of the 3 brain states for ourselves so we know where we are at, so we're not replicating that situation in the car. And we need to be able to identify when children have slipped into either their survival or emotional state. So to begin with, we have the survival state, and it's way back here in the back of our brain. It served us well back in the day. The tiger or something chasing us, we are going to run, right? We're going to fight. We're going to freeze. We see this all the time in nature. You can think of animals. When I think of freeze, I think of the possum and playing dead. And when I think of the flight, I think of a mouse or a snake or something scurrying away. And then we have those animals that go instinctively to the fight. The idea here is it's unconscious, as Pam was illustrating. And many of us, if we really sit and reflect, could say, I flee, or I'm a fighter. We can identify when we're here because we have that innate tendency when there's conflict or stress to go there in one of those 3 spaces. The other thing about this that's important to note is going back to the story we started with, perspective is everything. So I am really, really, truly afraid of spiders and snakes. If I see a spider or if I see a snake, I'm going to scream, I'm going to run, I'm going to call my husband and jump on the bed and freeze, right? It's not a real threat, but I've perceived it, and I'm back here and I'm not thinking logically at all. I'm unconscious. So sometimes when these things show up, it may not be what we perceive to be reality or a realistic response, but it's whoever is perceiving the act, right? Then we have the emotional state, and as it was mentioned in the story, what's really important about this is where we have the limbic system, and the limbic system is what tells our brain to process memories, activate our emotions, and tells us what's worth remembering. We can all probably relate to someone who has maybe had a traumatic experience, and the way they remember that traumatic experience could be very different. They may have blocked some memories. We're in our emotional state when that happens. Also, when we're in our emotional state, self-defense. That's what we're thinking about. And if you see over on the far right, when we go into our emotional state, back to the comment up here from the beginning, this is when all we really want to know is, are we loved? That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Similarly with survival, all I want to know is, am I safe? Is that snake going to hurt me? So very quickly, we want you to turn to a partner and transfer this into the classroom or the children that you work with on a daily basis, if you're an administrator or perhaps a parent, and just name a time when you can think a child has gone into a survival or emotional state, and what might have been your cue. How would you know?
Before we get started, I know you've all noticed we're on, I don't know what channel TV is going to be on, but anyway, we're on the morning news tomorrow morning, and we have a microphone that we'd love to capture some of your brilliant conversation, or even just your thinking. Doesn't have to feel brilliant, but we'd love to have the walking mic, so if it comes and just kind of peeks in there, just continue your conversation, be as generous as possible, and let's have a great little sharing time and listen for the chimes. Thank you. So go ahead and converse.
Would you ladies be willing to pass it around the table? Sure. Sure. I think when a child is in a survival state, when a child is running or hiding in your classroom and doesn't want to be, or wants to feel more comforted in a small space.
I agree. I think that they tend to hide, or also if they don't agree with something, their first response is to hit back or show aggression out of a survival, like, you're not going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you first. And so like a defense. So.
Thank you so much.
There's a child who, I always ask, when I have a child acting up that doesn't act up, I'm immediately asking them, is there change at home? To affect this, because you can see it. And it always is, every time.
I had a child, whenever he's reprimanded in any fashion, he just breaks down, goes hides, and starts screaming his head off. An example, typically the kids ask me if they need to go to the bathroom, and I send one at a time, one boy, one girl, if they need to go. Well, this a child came and asked me, I sent him to the bathroom, and the other one he's been absent for a week and a half, so when he came, I guess he forgot some of the rules, and he just goes to the bathroom. While they're in the bathroom messing around, and another teacher comes in, and then she goes and gets me and says, hey, these two boys have been messing around, they're screaming, carrying on, and so forth. So I said, okay. So when they came back, I said, boys, you guys know you're not supposed to go to the bathroom, both of you at the same time. Well, one asked for permission, the other one didn't. So I said to the other one, now, you know you're not supposed to go unless you ask, and I would have told you to wait until this other one came back. So he got upset, especially when the other teacher was, upset. And so he goes and hides under the table and starts screaming his head off. And the rest of them get irritated, and I'm like, he gets emotional. He's emotionally upset when he gets any kind of discipline, because at home he wasn't disciplined, very much. He was kind of babied. Mom admitted to, oh yeah, well, we kind of let him get away with all this stuff. now Mom's really on board now. She's really working hard to get that out of the system. So then he goes and ties everything and starts pushing the table all the way as far as he can go. Of course, we discussed it with Mom, and then he came back the next day and apologized. But
I wish I could be at all of your tables hearing all of the discussions that you were just having. I am a little trapped here. I'm not used to being able to not move, so it is what it is. I'm accepting it. I want you to keep those children in mind that you were just discussing. And just a quick question, and if you can give me a head nod or thumbs up, was it easy to identify? Was it easy to pull a few kids up? Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that? She says it's easy to recall a child, but not necessarily which state they're in. And I'm assuming you mean between either survival or emotional.
Or either even. I mean, children who have never been denied anything, I call them my children who need their boundaries and fences. Is that a survival reaction or an emotional state?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is that?
Right. Yeah, and that's an important point to make, because until you identify that, you can't identify what's the developmental question that they're needing right now. Is it love or is it safety? And sometimes they could look similar, and sometimes we can flip-flop between the two.
And just that child that doesn't make the best choices. It doesn't seem to me that they're in either those emotional states, but they're still not able to.
But maybe it's survival.
I don't know.
Maybe it's survival because they've always gotten what they want, and so they're trying to survive because it's me, and that's all they've been taught is me. And so I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just kind of thinking.
I think they're operating under
Thank you.
a false sense of scarcity, because if you've always gotten so much and you're constantly in an abundant state, and then you're not, how do you balance what may appear to be for them scarcity or that abundance, when really the perception of their reality is off?
And sometimes we never really know for sure, right? Sometimes we look at the behavior and we have to determine what we're going to do based on what we see. But remember, we're talking about from the inside out. Think about us as the adults.
We talked about a little bit about us as teachers processing behavior. You know, we have so much going on at one time, and people don't come out, and you're trying to process what is that child need right now, and I have 26 other students tapping me going, what are we doing, what are we doing? You know, I mean, it's hard, because looking back, I can identify, oh, I should have probably done this. Looking back after analyzing the situation, but in the moment, trying to make these decisions and process what's actually happening is a challenge.
Well, and what state are you in?
I was just going to say, I appreciate the in the moment, because you're going into emotional survival. I have everything going on, and that's exactly why we're talking about these states. It's a dance. It's a dance between my states and your states. So it's a parallel process, and it's a lot. It's a big ask, but we have to make sure that both we and the child is here in the executive state. And so, do you have a question?
Well, if I may say, I think if we overdo ourselves and we expect so much of what we should be doing, then we lose that calmness and that.
Great point. Yeah. In Conscious Discipline, she has a whole chapter that talks about the power of acceptance. And accepting the moment as it is doesn't mean we're resigning to it, doesn't mean we don't want it different. But if we don't have some of that acceptance, right, and he's under the desk, and I have other kids that need me, and this is the moment right now, this is what it is. That acceptance can be so powerful to be keeping our composure and to make sure that we're staying here so we can not only have the children be learning, but we also can be staying in teaching mode and not slipping down into maybe more punitive or blaming. I'd love to keep going with this, but do you have a comment, Pam?
No, there's just so much.
There's so much, you guys. Like I said, we want to be here all day. So we know that the executive state is where we can learn. It is where it allows us to see from other points of view, manage our emotions, and access goal achievement and problem-solving skills. And this is where we need to be and where the children need to be. And the point to this is pretty obvious, but which state might he be in? I'm hearing both emotional, perhaps survival. And what state might she be in? We hope executive. She's looking pretty calm and ready to go. And the point to this is sometimes in the fray of the craziness when we have those situations where there's so much going on, we can choose to have these teachable moments likely when it's not a teachable moment, right? And then we wonder, why isn't this working? We talked about this, and we had the scripted story, and we sat down, but this child was like this. I was doing the talking. I maybe was in my executive state, but if this child is here, we have to get him out of the state first. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Before we get into some strategies here, because this is such a parallel process, we just want you to take a minute with maybe the same elbow partner and think of a time in the classroom where you were in survival, emotional, executive. How did you know?
I think you guys have really identified many of those times.
We'll take just 2 minutes. Really, I know it's how hard it is to end those conversations. I appreciate you coming back at the chime. I'm just curious, did anyone share a story or a time when they knew they were here? No? Everyone went here. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Speaking of memory, I forgot to say something about this state that I wanted to remember to say, which is when we are in our executive state, especially working with the little ones like TK, that's when, like Ellen Glinsky was saying, that's when we're able to borrow our prefrontal cortex and borrow our executive functions in a way in which we're modeling those skills and have a pretty amazing privilege and opportunity to become that inner voice, because they may not have those skills yet, but if we can model it for them of what it would sound like and what it would look like, and not like the example in the car, we get the privilege of hopefully becoming one of those inner voices that's playing in their CD-ROM. And so I think that's so powerful to think, we know that our speech becomes their speech. Just like and we all have had those moments where we'll react in a way and I'll go, oh, my mom does that all the time. I just sounded like, and no offense, Mom, love her. But we all have the inner dialogue from various people that we cross paths with. So I just wanted to point out how important that is in the modeling. I'm going to ask, we're not going to share a whole group for this because I want to keep us on task. But we're going to see this power in action now.
Mm-hmm. So I'd really like to just give you an example. We're going to give you an example. This is, in fact, this is a YouTube video. DJ Batiste, if you ever want to pull it up again, DJ Batiste. DJ was a former gang member, but he was a Head Start child. And what's amazing is his senior year in high school, his teacher, you'll see her fluctuate between the 3 brain states during this video. Just get a picture of where you see her going and what you see her doing to stay in executive state herself. Remember, if we can't stay in the executive state, we can't problem solve with the child. But the reality is, you guys, the job you do every day is really hard. And it's harder than it was when I started teaching kindergarten in 1975. It's harder now. I had 38 kindergartners in my classroom by myself. And it was hard then, but this is different. This is a different kind of hard because their challenging behaviors have escalated differently. So we have to be a different kind of teacher. So I just want to compliment all of you, because the openness and the reflection that I see in the room and I hear from your conversation speaks to who you are and the kind of teacher you are every single day. So let's listen to Mrs. Porter and DJ Batiste.
Batiste, and I was born in Lacombe, Louisiana. I was raised by my grandmother. I was born to a 14-year-old mom and a 16-year-old dad, so they were young. They really weren't able to make too many decisions. I was very defiant, though. I loved to get in trouble, because getting in trouble got your attention. I was the type of student where I loved attention, and I did whatever it took to get attention. I was the leader of a gang. And let me tell you why, because in a gang, we got a sense of security and a sense of belonging. We feel like these my homies, they gonna take care of me, they got me, no matter what. So that give us that sense of belonging. Fight, that was our only option. We had a disagreement, we fought. Whether we playing basketball, playing hide and go seek, it didn't matter. If it's a disagreement, we fight. So I was raised like that, and that was instilled in my head. It wasn't no other option. You fight, you fight, you fight. You have to be violent. And I'm gonna tell you, we like to fight in school because we know we had a crowd, so we continue to get kicked out of school. We jump people. I mean, just so much violence. I never was a second thought. When it came to my head, that's what I did. If I wanted to fight, boom, I'm fighting. If you're close enough where I can put my hands on you, I'm hitting you in your mouth. That's just how I was. I did go to juvenile twice. Me and my homeboys was riding one time. We got pulled over by the police. The police found some pistols in the trunk, pistols up under the seat. And we wasn't even headed to no, out of all the times we done had guns on us, headed to go do something, the police never stopped us. But this time we were just riding around with the guns, and he stopped us. And they confiscated all the guns and took us down, took the guns, and yeah, pretty bad. It was my first day of my senior year of school, and everybody always tell me, since you hate school so much and you're ready to get out of school, then why don't you just go ahead and put forth a little effort and finish your senior year? And I didn't look at it like that. I looked at school as a place of, that's where I can associate, this when I can make people laugh, I can be a leader still, because people want to see me, people want to follow me. I can look at girls, and if anything's going on between the hours of 8 and 3, it's gonna happen in school. So I didn't want to miss it. So that was my little motivation for school, to go to school, because I didn't want to miss anything. And I walked in Miss P class, that's what I call it, Miss P class late.
My name is Donna Porter, and I teach public speaking at Picayune Memorial High School in Picayune, Mississippi.
I sat back and thought about it. When you late to something, everybody looks at you.
And all of a sudden the door flings open, and this huge student that I've never seen in my life walks in and says, "What's up?"
And she looked, and I said, "What's up?" You know, and I just had the attention of the class that fast.
My first thought is, why did this happen to me? On the first day of school, when I'm trying to set the tone. And then I thought, I've got this. Thank goodness I've got this. But to be able to access my brilliance, I have to take a deep breath, stay composed, and watch him, look at his nonverbal language, because all behavior is purposeful.
She said, "Well, I noticed you're late to my room. There's no problem because you probably couldn't find it." I just kind of looked at her with this crazy look like, yeah, whatever. And then she was like, "Well, have a seat." And I looked at her, I said, "Do you have any kids?"
And I said, "Well, actually, your name is DJ, Mr. Batiste. I have 2, and I just informed the class about it, but because you missed my room, you didn't hear." "So are you married?" he said. And I said, "Actually, I just told the class I've been married for 30 years.
I stepped back and said, 30 years? Folded my arms, looked up and down and said, "Don't you think it's time for a change?" Now, at that point in time right there, I expected her to get red in the face, lose her composure, run to her desk, get a referral, write me up and send me out. I was ready for that. That's what I expected. And now that I've learned, the brain seeks patterns. So that was the pattern that my brain was seeking. You be disrespectful, you get sent out of class, but you get the attention that you want. She didn't do that. She looked at me, she smiled and said,
"Do you go to the doctor when you're well?" And he looked at me very funny. He said, "No, you go when you're sick." I said, "You come to school when you know everything?" He said, I guess not. I guess you come supposedly to learn. I said, well, you've got a lot to learn and I can't wait to teach you. And then I left him with that feeling of angst. And then I said, you know what I noticed more importantly about you? You have charisma.
Charisma? You know, she was like, do you know what that means? I said, I'm cute. And everybody in the class laughed. And she was like, something like that. She was like, but you just know how to work a room, you know? And I said, I was just listening to her. She was like, she threw me off because she started talking good about me after I wanted her to be get into a power struggle with me. That's what I wanted.
And I said, so I've been thinking in the last few seconds, I give jobs to my students in high school. Do you know anything about jobs in school? He said, oh yeah, in kindergarten, I was the line leader. I said, we don't have a line leader in high school, but we have appropriate jobs. And I usually take a week or so to figure out what job would best fit what student. I do a multiple intelligence survey, and we tell a little bit about ourselves. But you know what, DJ? I don't need to do all that with you, because you're innately designed to be a greeter. He's like, a greeter? What's that? And I said, a greeter is someone that will stand at my door every morning.
As everybody come in, I get to shake everybody's hand, appropriately hug the girls. That threw my mind off. And then she said, on top of that, I get to come in front of her class and have my own session for 2 to 3 minutes. How does that sound? That's what she said. I said, it sounds too good to be true, so let me run it back to you. I said, so you mean to tell me I get to stand outside your classroom, shake everybody's hand who comes by, then on top of that, I get to come in front of the class and have my own session? She was like, yeah. I said, well, I want, you know what I'm saying, I want to try this. She was like, but it's one catch. And I remember I dropped my head like I knew it was something, you know.
All you have to do is be on time.
Because if you're my greeter, that means you have to be the first one here so everybody get a chance to see you and shake your hand before they walk in my classroom. And I just remember shaking my head like, all right, I try this, you know. I see what it's something here I can't tell yet, but it was something there, and I just remember thinking, I try this. And she said, okay, pick up your backpack that you threw down and go have a seat. And that was the first day of my new life.
Day 2, I'm standing in the hall and I see this mass of people just partying, and the only figurative language I can think of is Moses parting the Red Sea. And here comes this huge guy, and I hear these words that are so important for anybody watching this video. Everybody move out of my way. I've got to get to Miss Porter's class on time because, listen, I have a job to do. I have a job to do. A disconnected child is a discouraged child. He needed to be encouraged, and every day he stood from day 2. He had been in the criminal justice center, he had been expelled from the alternative school, he had been in school isolation, out of school suspension. Nothing worked. All he needed was to be encouraged. And he became my greeter. We usually have jobs just every 9 weeks, but by unanimous vote of the class, he became the year-long greeter because they felt nobody could do the job as well as DJ.
I feel like the experiences that I went through in my life was meant to happen so I can come back and help kids, help teachers understand. I feel like I have a gift that I need to share, a testimony that I would like to share, and I know I can help kids along with teachers. Oftentimes teachers get into it with students, they have problems with students because they don't have the skills. And I feel like anytime I can help a teacher get the skills, she has a chance to save a life. And I often tell teachers, I want you to have the same success story that Ms. Porter had. I want you to have that student that you walk down the aisle with to that graduation. I want you to have that student that say he owes his life to you. And only reason.
How many of you have a DJ in your classroom? Yeah. This is DJ growing up. He started out in pre-K. He was a Head Start student. There's so much in this video. So, and I show this to every single new teacher, new teacher employee that comes to our agency. And it's a foundation for us from which to build. It's so much. What spoke to you? Yes, ma'am.
All behavior is purposeful.
All behavior is purposeful. All behavior is communication. Yes, they're communicating something. Did he tell you what he was communicating by the way he acted? What did he want? Attention. Yes, and he knew once he acted a certain way, he was going to get kicked out. That CD-ROM was in his head. He knew what was happening. What else spoke to you? He wanted to belong. He'd been in the gangs. He'd done all kinds of things. He wanted to belong. Yes?
I liked how she said, I'm going to access my brilliance.
I'm going to access my brilliance. And did you watch her? Her body language, so did you see that she was like standing like this? We call this, in conscious discipline terms, my legs are crossed too. This is called the pretzel. It's crossing the midline. It's a form of breathing, because there's a physiology thing that happens in your brain when you can bathe it with oxygen. It releases those bad juju hormones that are there when you get mad, right? So she was standing like this, and the first thing she said was, why did this happen to me, right? So at first she was in survival mode. Oh no, I want to run. Am I safe? Not sure. This big guy came in here. He is full of something, and I don't know what I'm going to do. But then she said, I took a breath, access my brilliance, and she went on. She totally took that moment that Kristin was referencing, that moment between the stimulus and the response, took that moment as it was, took a breath to activate her executive state so she could go on. Did it work? Oh my word. What else? Anything else? Yes. She used $1 million word, didn't she? She taught him something right away. Charisma, yes, you have charisma. Said something good about him. Obviously that shocked him, right? To help pull him out of his survival mode. Yes, yes.
She embraced who he was and made him a productive member of the class.
Yes.
He thought he would never have
A
that.
discouraged child, a disconnected child is a discouraged child. She connected him on day one. Oh my word. Yes. Yes.
I just thought it was, she just seemed very confident and calm. Just kind of went with the flow and didn't really seem to raise her voice.
So she seemed confident and calm and accessed her brilliance on a regular basis, it sounds like, doesn't it? Think about this. She consciously, as opposed to unconsciously, was making a choice about how she was responding. I'm sure she's not perfect. I'm sure she has to give herself grace at certain times. But it was a beautiful example. And this is an older child. So DJ Batiste was one of our pre-service speakers about 4 years ago at our agency. He actually came. He's a real guy. He does go around and he partners with the conscious discipline trainers across the nation. And he actually has a real story to tell. And to see him interact with teachers and to talk about relationships and that face-to-face interaction is a beautiful thing. There are 3 or 4 YouTube videos of DJ just on YouTube, and if you'd like to just access that. Think about the child that you had in your head earlier on that has those challenging behaviors. How does this resonate with that child? Anybody want to be brave? And can one person bravely tell that story? Yes, right here in the front.
Well, one of my students that I have, it's on and off been just kind of fluctuating between, he's doing all right and things are okay, and then suddenly he'll just tank and won't listen to anything and falling to pieces. And, there's always one part of me that's like, okay, I just need to kind of ignore the bad behavior and just focus on the good and just, heap on the praise and, rewarding him when he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, even if it's for 5 seconds of not touching someone. But then I've noticed too, if it goes too long, then he'll just keep escalating the behavior until it's something that I cannot ignore. And one of the things I really liked about her video that she did is that she actually took the time in front of the entire class having this dialogue with him, with everyone still watching, when often as teachers we feel like that's a no-no. You can't do that with everyone watching, because then you could be on the verge of maybe shaming the child or something like that. But I think there's times where, like with her, it's really important to have that conversation right there with everyone there, so that the kids can kind of get a feel for you, you can get a feel for the kids, and you can kind of, the word's not set the kid in their place or set you in their place, but kind of establish that relationship right there.
And that expectation.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful story. And to go along with that, I've seen children having a fallout, and a teacher saying in their executive state, telling themselves, I'm going to access my brilliance, and saying to themselves, boys and girls, Johnny is having a difficult time right now. Let's breathe for him. Collectively. That's not shaming, but let's breathe for him. We're all part of the family together. You can't tell me the other children don't know that Johnny has many difficult times. So let's breathe for him, and let's show him a little bit of empathy, give him a chance to get out of his yuck, and then help him out. So that's beautiful. Am I off? I think we're a little, I have a tendency of talking too long, but anyway, let's go.
I'm going to piggyback and talk too long probably, but I just want to share my DJ story really fast. I was struggling with a child. He was a 3rd grader. He, had a challenging home life. He brought it to school, and it was a power struggle constantly, and I was looking and searching for new strategies. And sometimes when you see some of this stuff, we consider it like the soft skills, and it's not really a strategy. I need something stronger than that, right? But anyway, I had just started taking on some of these pieces. He was having a day. We were in the room. He started throwing a fit, throwing chairs, yelling, screaming in front of the whole class, and the whole class is looking at me just like this. What are you going to do? And I went to walk over to him after he had just thrown a chair, and I'm going, okay, breathe, breathe. And he climbs under the desk. And I'm thinking, okay, he's too big for me to carry out. What am I going to do? They're watching. I don't have any help right now. We need to be moving on with the lesson. And I started, I don't know if I'd say access my brilliance, but some of the new strategies I was trying to take on, right? And I was like, okay, I got to shift him. There's no talking to him right now. I'm not going to teach him anything right now, but I have to shift him out. So I had tried to think what would be that, not shock factor, but what could be something I'd say that's going to take him off guard and get him in his thinking, in his executive functions. So I knelt down, and even though I was ready to, do something else, I went under the desk, I got to eye level, and as kindly and nicely and genuinely as I could, I said, Nick, do you think that just because I really, really care about you, that we can do this right now? And he was ready for me to come at him. He was ready for me to drag him out. He was ready for me to do all the things I'd done in the past, right? Stop, it's not okay, we're going to call, And I could see in his face this, like, you really care about me? And he came out of the desk. I said, can you take my hand? And he took my hand, which never happened. And I walked him out of the room, and I got support, and we moved on. But I got a letter from him when he graduated senior year saying I made a difference. So the small moments, the small wins, right? Okay, so what we're really talking about here is the skill of composure that Dr. Becky Bailey talks about in Conscious Discipline. And she says this so beautifully. Composure is self-regulation in action. It is the prerequisite skill adults need before disciplining children.
Hence the inside out.
And it's twofold. It's about the skill of composure and our perception, right? So going back to that spider, if I'm perceiving this child as a threat, I'm gonna slip back. And so I have to be aware of both my composure and my perception. And she talks about several strategies that I love. that are both for us and to teach the children. One of them is called Being a Star, and we're going to direct you to a resource that shows you kind of exactly how to teach this. It's similar to the pretzel that Pam was showing you earlier, but this one is called Being a Star. It's first about us being able to do it like we saw in the video, and then teaching it to children, that this is actually a skill that can support us, and it's not just hokey pokey, it's brain science, it's neurologically makes a difference. So for us, we stop, we perhaps smile. We are adults, so we can smile, and it's not going to confuse us if you're looking at a child and they're really upset and you're saying smile. I wouldn't recommend that. But for us, if we're really upset and we smile and we hold the smile, try it right now. And just hold it. And just hold it. There is a neurological change that happens in the chemistry of our body.
Right here, there is a nerve that takes that smile, actually activates something great in our brain. You may not be feeling it inside, but that smile's on your face.
So for us, we perhaps smile. For children, we stop. We take a deep breath. Let's do it. And as yoga and all those other great practices out there, it's the belly breath. It's deep, and we do it several times. She has an icon that you can access, that you can see in the far left picture over here, that has the star on it, and also some tools of how you would teach that working with children. Remembering first it's about us, and then you can use it with your kids. And in addition to the star, there's 3 other breathing techniques: the balloon, the pretzel, and the drain. And I'm going to ask we stand up for a second so you can experience each one. You want to lead it?
So, for the balloon, you're going to blow. Can I ask you to hold my pack, whatever it's called? For the balloon, we're going to blow the balloon up. So the balloon is it doesn't have an ear. So as we blow it up, so as you in, okay. Now you see where the kids would love this. In fact, on her website, she calls starting the day the Brain Smart Start Way, and there are 4 activities to unite, connect, disengage stress, and commit. And every single day, she recommends that you start practicing with these deep breaths during set the stage. Start your day that way, the Brain Smart way. The drain, okay, we're going to get those. Were your kids like that? Yeah. Good luck. We wish you well practicing those. Thank you.
We talked about the pretzel earlier.
The pretzel I did for you. I did so beautifully for you. Yeah, they're really, yes.
Oh, that's cool. Do you want to share that?
You want to share?
Oh, I think it's from, I forgot which one that.
Sepham?
Where you breathe.
This is called the seal.
You breathe in, and then you breathe out. So if I'm really tense, I will. Okay, everybody, let's breathe.
Well, and the key here, guys, is that belly breath. In fact, there's a Sesame Street video called, that Grover, I think, does Belly, Belly, Belly Breathe. It's a little song, YouTube song, and shows them how to move their belly and actually give a good, deep belly breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in addition to the breathing strategies, we also wanted to share with you Tucker Turtle. Familiar?
Do you know Tucker Turtle?
Some yes, some no. Okay.
How many of you know Tucker Turtle? Raise your hand. How many of you have a Tucker Turtle in your classroom? Who would like to have one? Oh my goodness. Okay, well I have 3 to give away. And you know Tucker Turtle has a great social story about how he tucks and thinks. And our pre-K teachers use him all the time. So there's,
and you can find that
there's
right
the
here.
website. It's in your packet. Tucker Turtle's story is there. You can download and print it for yourself. We did not make that. But I have 3 Tucker Turtles to give away today. And does anyone have a birthday today, May 12th? Oh. May 10th, 11th. 11? 10? Woohoo! Okay, let's go tomorrow, the 13th, 14th, 9. Are you the 9th? 8th? Okay, here we go. Woo! Okay, round of applause. There are our 3 Tucker Turtles. We'd love you to send us pictures of Tucker in action. That would be great. You didn't know that you got a free prize with something required of you, but that's okay. So let's go to the next section. So I'm going to think about...
Pam, hold on one second. I just want to... We did talk about the safe place here. Yeah. 2 things. Not only is Tucker Turtle here, but many, many other scripted stories that you can easily access and print. And they're wonderful social stories for getting kids to learn some of those executive functions and composure.
Excuse me, but the thing to remember is if they're in their yuck, it's not the time to sit down and say, oh yeah, let's read a story together. So they have to be calm to go back and read that story.
And I've seen many teachers be really successful using the scripted story concept, especially when they transpose the actual child's name, and now the story becomes theirs, and the story goes home with them and their families. And you're teaching their families as well. Safe place. I'm sure several of you have safe places or a place in your room where children can go to self-regulate themselves. It is not the same as a timeout, and it's where they choose to go. And in this video, Dr. Bailey talks about suggestions for how to set up your safe place and what you might put there for children to go calm themselves, have some alone time, reflect, breathe, so on. So just a few resources.
So I'm thinking about a trigger thought that Kristin just shared with us. When she sees a spider or a snake, she immediately goes into fight or flight mode. That's a trigger thought. Mrs. Porter, her first trigger thought was, why did this happen to me? She saw this big guy, knew he came with a lot of issues, it appeared. He came in late, he was a little bit disrespectful, and there were a lot of trigger thoughts right there. So we all have trigger thoughts. For me, as a principal, my trigger thought was when a child was being bullied, for some reason that triggered, I wanted to go there. I'm going to take you down. This is not okay to treat people that way. I had to learn that there was a reason behind that, right? So a trigger thought often, in fact it always does, so you think about in your own head, what is your trigger thought? It's our hot button. It's connected to that CD-ROM. It activates those old messages that play over and over in our head. In fact, being a redhead and freckles, I might have had, as a child, some teasing. So for some reason, boy, that, as a principal, that was the big thing for me. But it also gave me a false message. In my head, I was thinking, well, you're just mean, you're a mean kid. But that's not the true message. So our trigger thought will take us, activate an old message, makes false messages. Kristin's about the spider or the snake, it's going to get her, it's going to hurt her. That's not true. So what is your trigger thought? Also gives you this uncomfortable situation. You've heard the saying, my blood is boiling, right? Well, it's not really boiling, but there's something's going on in there that's not quite right, and it actually gives you this sense of uncomfortable, unease, and then we have an automatic response. Stop it. Go to your room. Whack. Go to the timeout. Go change your card. Automatic response. Now, I didn't tell you anything that I have not done. Every single one of those things I have done. My children are 35 and 40, and they have their own CD-ROM because of me. Kristin has a chance to correct all those things because she knows so much so young. How many of you know what your trigger is? Anybody want to share? Yes.
I know one of mine is just just that silence, defiance, like the
They refuse to talk.
I would rather have them yell at me or act out than just refuse to do something.
Did you hear that? She said the silent defiance where they just refuse to respond and they sit there and pout. Yes, you in the back.
When I'm sorry, I've got a little laryngitis. When he was saying how he just couldn't wait to put his hands on people, just to be abusive.
He couldn't wait to put his hands on people. You have 5 that are like that. Wonder what's going on. But did DJ help you with that? I mean, he's learned to fight. They just fight. He just said everything that happens, he fights. Somebody helped him get out of that, though. Yeah. Anybody else? One more? Yes.
Please don't color on the table.
Coloring on the table,
Just
yeah.
asking them to
I'm going to
not
break
do
your
something
fingers
and
next time you do it.
Cussing. Any cussing? Using bad,
Cussing.
Bad language.
We understand they can bleep things out in here for us. Would you like to give an example? No, I'm just teasing. In a pre-K classroom. I'm just teasing. Remember, I work with pre-K all the time. And let me tell you this, guys. Your stories are not different than Tulsa, Oklahoma stories. You might think it is, but it's not. In fact, the biggest thing our teachers say to us every year is, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And as you can see, there's no quick fix for anything, right? So let's talk about this. Think about the quote right there. What you notice, you get more of. What does that say to you? If you focus your attention on learning the ABCs, you get a lot of ABCs. If you focus your attention on learning how to write your name correctly, you get a lot of correct letter formation writing their name, right? If you focus a lot of attention on counting, you're going to get a lot of counting. What you focus on, you get more of. So what we attend to is like a flashlight in the dark. Or it's like that highlighter in a book. When we highlight something, we're highlighting what's important to us. When we focus on something, we're focusing on what's important to us. And guess who learns what's important to us? Those kids. They know what's important to you. They know, many of them know it's important to you not to color on the table. That doesn't mean they're not going to. But many of the ones that don't do it know it's important to you not to do that, right? So we all have experiences where we fixate on something or what we want a child to be. And oftentimes when we get triggered, we're triggered to go and focus on the negative. See what happens. This is what we don't want. Ignatius, why did you hit Jake? Would you like someone to hit you? Hitting hurts. Go turn your card to red and then come back and be nice. Yeah, let's do. This works every time, doesn't it? He's going to be nice the next time. He's not going to put his hands on anybody. He's not going to choke them. He's not going to color on that table. What is that teacher focusing on? Hitting, right? Right? The next one. Jenna, what's our rule about fighting? You need to go see the principal right now. Fighting is not allowed in this school. Fighting's bad and it's wrong. Get out of here now. What is that teacher focused on? Fighting. Jose, you wanted a marker. You didn't know the words to use to get it. You may not grab. When you want a marker, say, "May I borrow your marker, please?" Now let's practice that. Now that takes accessing somebody's brilliance. What is that teacher focusing on? The communication, the words, teaching. He obviously didn't have the words. Let's teach him the words. She showed empathy to that other person too. Exactly. Yes, compassion and empathy. So we must shift our focus. Can you shift? Do you see how the shift could happen here or could happen here? So we're going to do an activity right now to think about how we can reframe some of those great things that trigger us into a way that we're teaching a child, taking a moment to teach. This is only when we have the ability to access our brilliance. Give yourself grace, because it's not 24/7, right? But every once in a while during that day, you can celebrate that moment that you took a breath and said, "I've got this." Okay, Kristin.
Can I click?
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Yeah, you can click
Sure
all you
can.
want.
Okay, so just a couple more examples. You heard parts of what it sounded like. So on this side, we have the triggered habitual response. Don't touch. We're focused on the negative. What we also know about young children's brains is they think in nouns and verbs. They don't often process the don't, right? They hear touch. They're very visual. So I say don't touch, and you're focused on the touch. I'm focused on the touch. I touch. Assertive statement, so flipping it then to an assertive statement, and what I want, hold my hands so I can help you touch delicate objects safely. You know better than that. I heard that a lot. Instead, say excuse me when you bump into others. I mean, how much does this hurt, or could it affect someone if you're saying, you know better than that, and maybe they didn't, right? Stop. It's not nice to hit others. Focused on the negative, focused on the not nice. Instead, when you want to get her attention, tap her on the shoulder gently like this and say her name. So you see all these turned into the teacher very quickly identifying here's a skill they may not have. I'm modeling the language of what this sounds like. I'm borrowing my executive functions to the child, and I'm teaching. Just like if they didn't know the letter B in the alphabet. So we're modifying this because of time. There are a lot, and actually not because of time, the room we changed it to. So we have a lot of statements around the room that perhaps could be a trigger for you. And we want you to have the opportunity to practice this because it's not always easy. So you have an option. You can either find one of the examples around the room. Nate knocks Katie's block structure down. My immediate thought might be, you're not being nice, stop. So I have to think, what would be my triggered habitual response, and instead, what might I say to focus on, switch the attention to the positive and go in more of a teaching mode. You're welcome to read the situations around the room, and if none of those are really triggers for you and you have one that you're like, this is one that I really want to think through and practice, feel free to do that one. And we'll give you about 5 minutes, maybe 4, to work with someone at your table, either pairs or triads, whatever works best for you. And then we want to hear some of the reframing language that you come up with. Any questions? Okay. You are not. So you're just going to visually look. You can write on the back of your packet.
We were going to do the posters, as you can tell, but a lot to cover.
Here we go. All right, we have about 5 minutes left, and we want to get you out of here on time. But
for your lunch.
We really want to hear how this reframing felt. So, maybe just 2-3 groups that are willing to share what was your trigger and how did you reframe it? What was the language you might use?
Ooh. It's hard.
In all honesty, I think like one of the beauties of JK is, okay, I don't care about the pacing guide, I don't care about what week, what unit. Okay, this is a problem. We can stop, we can shut everything down, we can take care of it as a class. And a lot of times it's a matter of just training them to be little people that interact with each other. My problem is I get home and as a mom, I'm like, are you kidding me? I can't talk to you about this. And it's like everything, it's all gone.
You give everything all day long? Don't tell Kristin that.
Oh
She's going to be the perfect parent. I get it.
I'm sorry.
I know I'm telling you. Oh,
My husband, are you serious?
Yeah.
We just talked about
pick your socks up. I mean, seriously.
Composure and patience.
Yeah.
It's real.
That was my trigger.
Can anybody give us an example? Thank you for sharing that. That's very honest, and we're all there with you. We would breathe with you collectively, and that help you with that. Yes. That's I've got plenty. Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh, we like oils here too.
Yeah.
I think with any trigger, you have to teach children, especially at this age, to be able to name what they're feeling. Mm-hmm. You can't just assume that they understand that if they're talking out or shouting out or hitting or whatever, that it's just that they've made that choice. You have to say, I know you're frustrated, or I think you're angry, or you have to be able to label that feeling to help them figure it out.
I see on your face.
Or I see on your face, or whatever it is that they can give it a name, and then you have to give them some choices. You have to say, how could we do this a different way? How could you do this? What would you do next time? And then the practice. It's the that acknowledgement of what the behavior is. It's
absolutely
what could we do in a positive way, and then the practice. And it's just constant over and over and over and over. It doesn't stop.
No, and I appreciate so many things about what you just said. It's that whole notion of we name it to tame it, and learning those feeling words and understanding what they mean is helping us bridge from problem to solution. That's the first step. And I just lost my train of thought. You said something else at the end. Practicing it, yeah. It doesn't. And for some reason, we think. I won't say we. I thought, I had all the patience in the world for my kiddos that couldn't read, but for the child that kept bugging another child and just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, I didn't have patience for that. And it was still a skill that was needing to be developed. And so, patience. And it takes time.
Once they make that choice, they have to go show you. And then, you can do it. Let's do it that way.
That's right. Mm-hmm. It's building that muscle memory too. They might do it once correctly, but if we can continue to get them to do it and ingrain, then that becomes our natural habit, just as these skills for us do.
But Dr. Becky Bailey, you could have written and co-written with her, because so much of what you said is in here. It's but it's hard to do. Yes. Well, you all are brilliant. I hope that we've just given you something to think about before you leave, and to think about composure, to think about your triggers, to think about your brain state and children's brain state and how we respond to that. And as you think about next year, put all kinds of fun things ready to help both of you together to make it even more successful than this year. I'd love to read you the last quote. It's critical to remember that a child who is triggered into an emotional or survival state is like a vacuum that tries to pull us and the other children into that same state. We must consciously choose to upshift our state through composure, or we will end up part of the problem instead of the solution. Bless you all. Please take a moment to fill out the survey. Let us know. We appreciate your attention and your engagement today.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you can put your feedback face down on the tables, we'd really appreciate it.